whatever you do, right, you have input in some of these projects that, although they feel tiny and you don't really see the input and the impact, down the line, without realizing, it has a massive impact on the firm's sort of reputation and brand, right? So you just feel proud that you just did a little bit, to get the firm to the next level, and it was because of your effort and your team's contribution. So that was probably my experience on that.
Well, that's great. So, I mean, you have been experienced a lot. I mean, especially in current situations about the COVID-19. So, is there any like project or stories you can tell us about your daily works or your method of workings? I mean, must be different between now and before, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can start with that. So when everything started last year, right, especially in the UK, last February, March, I was still on the trading floor. So I was in the market. So I was part of the massive sell-off in the markets, right? So that had an impact on my job, right, daily. I could see those things happening when Fed cut the interest rates, everything went crazy. So that was the first sort of impact and first shock, let's just say. And we got to remember, it was still early days in my career. I was, just over a year and a half in the industry. So it was a big shock. But then rapidly moving from that to working from home full time, and in a couple of days, I'll probably be at 1 year in this setup. So working from home for 1 year now. So this is the other end. I think we've come a long way, and right now, the challenge is when you're on these calls with 10, 20 people, you can hear all of those funny things, babies crying, dogs barking, people eating because they forgot to put their mic on mute. But for me, that shows just the natural side of everyone, and that's also fine. And I definitely embrace that. I do miss the office, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm dying to go back. But I think you just have to find the balance. And for me personally, the best model will be a hybrid model where you give the opportunity to the employees to choose where and how they work from. But yeah, some funny stories in the trading floor, with the bars and everything that happened there, moving from that to the working from home and seeing each person's personal side. It's equally funny and it's equally interesting. So yeah, just excited to see how the future holds and what's next. Does that answer the question? I'm not sure if I touched on everything.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good story. So how did you, overcome all those difficulties when you work at home? I believe there must be like something when you also work, you may have to pick up a conference call, right? some overtime calls and emails and all those meetings. Yeah. So how do you manage your emotion or your daily life?
No, I mean, I'll be honest. It's hard. It's not easy. And when I speak to people, I find that everyone feels that it's difficult to unplug, especially this new setup. And you're almost feel like you're working more hours. Well, the workload hasn't really changed, right? Pro-COVID was the same, right? So it's not that you suddenly have more things to do. It's just you've got more time to do because there's no such thing as 9 to 5 anymore unless you force it. So for me, really, I tried to stick to the same old routine I had, and just unplug whenever I have to. If I feel too much pressure, I just go for a run, for a jog, and I make sure I communicate that with my team and they're fine. When it comes to multiple things at the same time and how to balance and manage all of them, I try to have a pretty standard agenda. There's certain time of the day when I log in the morning to check my emails. Then I generally try to put my meetings and the calls, at least the important ones, in the first half of the day. So in the morning where the brain still works. So I don't leave a lot of important stuff for after lunch, right? And then that's when I focus on my BAU, business as usual activities. So when it comes to important calls and decisions and emails, that's on the first half of the day. And I think it's a rule that I picked up from my managers throughout my journey at RBC, and it's working pretty well for me. But as I said, in this current setup, I try to take that 1 hour lunch break if possible, go for a run, go for a jog, eat healthy, and 5, 6 p.m. just switch off, right? Unplug. There's no point to stay until too late if it's not gonna add that much value that day, right? Anything can wait until the next day, and there's no point to overdo it and just feel hammered by the end of the day.
All right. So if everything goes normal, do you prefer still work from home or go back to the office?
Say that again, sorry, is that for me or?
Yeah, for you, just for you. So if everything goes back to normal, do you prefer work from home or, keep it to the office?
I definitely want to go back to the office because we've recently moved offices in London, which we haven't seen yet. So I definitely want to go back for at least a couple of days. For me, ideally, the dream would be to work, I don't know, 60% from home, 40% in the office.
So that's the new normal. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for this sharing. What about you, Darren? Do you have any funny stories you want to share?
Not particularly from my end, but it was a bit weird when I first joined in the beginning because I've never actually met anybody from my team, and I working literally closely with them, like really closely, since we're a very small team. It was just kind of, I guess you could count that as an interesting experience because it's very weird to be working with someone so close, to be talking to them on almost a daily basis, but never actually see the faces. What's even more interesting is that my team, they are based outside of London in Jersey. And so to make it even weirder, even if everything goes back to normal, I will hardly actually see them in person.
Yeah, that's right. So, based on current situation, it's about all about COVID-19 and all about working from home and online interview. So, what do you think the biggest difference between now and before about the interviews of your companies? I mean, it must be some different.
And to be honest, I think I guess it's a bit trickier, especially when it comes to final stages of the interview, since you don't have the in-person assessment centers anymore, and they may have to use alternative methods to assess you. But I think apart from that, in my line of work, I can say for at least, which is wealth management, things are just kind of different, but I wouldn't say they are getting better or they're getting worse. So the way that it might feel a little less personal when you are interviewing over the phone or in front of a camera, because a number of key things about the interview is things like first impression, how do you come off as a person, which is difficult to judge in front of a video camera. I'm sure that every single one of you, every student that are who apply to RBC may be quite qualified, and I'm pretty sure. I say this with confidence because it's a very competitive industry, right? You have a whole lot of really very well qualified applicants coming in, and with the job itself, I don't think any one of you have any advantages to if already know how to do the job, or you are so smart that you don't need anybody to teach you, because a job is a job. Doesn't matter how much you can learn from the books. When it actually comes to working, you're still not going to be able to do anything until somebody briefs you on work and teaches you this, right? So then what else are we actually charging? So a lot of them, it is really down to the in-person interaction. How do you come off? How is your, let's say, way of talking? Are you, yeah. So do you prefer to talk this way, or do you prefer what's your methods of communication? How do you interact with people? How easy it is for you to strike off a conversation with someone? Let's say, I'm not saying that these are definitely factors that we'll consider, but it's just some things that could be considered that can be done in person but can't be over Zoom.
Yep. So, based on current situation, so what do you think like any kind of skills or like technical skills we need to have when we having those online interview or video interview, like before we find a same job like you? Is there any any training or skills we need to improve, like communicate skills, like because we are all doing those, like right now we are having like a video event, so maybe you don't understand everything of me. So what do you recommend to improve or anything? Any
I think
suggestion?
it's the way that you try to express yourself, really. And I know it is a little bit weird staring at the image of both the interviewer and also yourself, but you have to try to come off as a bit natural, because think about it that way. If you find it a bit weird, it's going to look pretty, I would say, fairly obvious on your faces, right? And so, and so obviously the interviewers